Society has a favorite story about genius. It's the one where a high IQ is a golden ticket to a perfect life. You make better choices, success comes easy, and your mind is a fortress, sharp and unshakable. We imagine a world where complex problems just melt away and every challenge is easily conquered. But what if that's just a story? What if the most powerful minds are also the most fragile? If you've ever felt like your brain is both your greatest superpower and your heaviest cross to bear, you're in the right place. The whole tortured genius idea isn't just a dramatic cliche for a reason. History is littered with brilliant people who suffered immensely. From Virginia Woolf's battles with depression to Ernest Hemingway's inner demons. And this isn't just about old anecdotes. A fascinating debate is raging in modern psychology. For a long time, the prevailing wisdom was that high intelligence came with a serious emotional cost. A major 2018 study of over 300 Mensa members seemed to prove it, finding they were diagnosed with mood disorders at more than double the rate of the general population at the time. It pointed to a direct, unsettling link. But then, other huge studies, like one from the UK Biobank in 2022, flipped the script. They suggested that a high IQ might actually protect you from things like anxiety and PTSD. So, what's the real story? As usual, it's complicated, and the truth is probably hiding somewhere in the middle. While a high IQ can give you some advantages, it also creates a totally unique internal experience, a set of mental and emotional habits that can make the world feel like an overwhelming, difficult place. Today, we're not just listing problems, we're getting into the why. We'll explore the real psychological gears that can turn a gift into a curse. From relentless overthinking to a bone-deep sense of existential dread. First up, let's talk about the engine that never ever shuts off. For a lot of people with a high IQ, the mind isn't a tool you can just put down. It's a supercomputer that's always on, constantly processing, simulating, and buffering. This is the breeding ground for overthinking and its evil twin, analysis paralysis. Does this sound familiar? You're replaying a slightly awkward conversation from 3 days ago, dissecting every word and every micro-expression, trying to figure out what you should have said. Or maybe you have a decision to make, a big one like a new career, or a small one like where to get dinner. But instead of just picking one, your brain explodes into 1,000 different timelines. You see every possible outcome, every risk, every single way it could succeed or fail. You weigh each option so intensely that you end up completely frozen, unable to move. That's analysis paralysis. The sheer number of possibilities your brain generates becomes a cage. So why does this happen? At its heart, high intelligence is all about recognizing patterns and thinking strategically. A powerful intellect is built to connect dots no one else sees and anticipate consequences 10 steps ahead. This is an incredible skill for solving a puzzle or building a business, but it's a total liability when you apply it to the messy, illogical, and deeply human parts of everyday life. Your brain treats a passive-aggressive email from a coworker with the same analytical firepower it would use to win a chess match. And the result is obsessive rumination. This specific pattern is a cornerstone of the hyper-brain, hyper-body theory. The influential 2018 survey of Mensa members found that nearly 27% reported a diagnosed mood disorder and 20% an anxiety disorder, numbers significantly higher than the general population's average. The researchers theorized this was tied to a psychological overexcitability, a fancy term for a heightened tendency to worry and ruminate. A brilliant mind's ability to analyze a critical comment can trigger a massive stress response, turning something minor into a source of major anxiety. But the science isn't totally settled. Some researchers argue it's not that a high IQ causes these issues, but that smarter people might be more self-aware and therefore more likely to go get a diagnosis in the first place. And as we mentioned, massive studies like the 2022 UK Biobank project didn't find that a high IQ was a risk factor for most disorders, and even suggested it might protect against some, like generalized anxiety. So while the debate goes on, the lived experience for many intelligent people is a mind that can be its own worst enemy. The same intellectual horsepower that can build empires can also construct prisons of indecision, leaving you stuck in a loop of what-ifs while life just keeps moving. One of the most painful things highly intelligent people report is a deep, unshakable loneliness. This isn't just the loneliness of being physically alone. In fact, many smart people love their solitude. It's a much deeper, more existential isolation. It's the feeling of being fundamentally out of sync with everyone around you. It's that quiet frustration in a meeting when you've already figured out the solution and have to sit there patiently while everyone else slowly catches up. It's watching someone's eyes glaze over when you try to share an idea that genuinely fascinates you because you went too deep, too fast. To survive socially, many gifted people learn to put on a mask. They simplify their language, dial back their curiosity, and engage in small talk they find utterly meaningless. This constant code switching is exhausting. It leads to the feeling that your real self, your true inner world, is invisible to others. This is sometimes called lonely genius syndrome. While it's not a real diagnosis, it perfectly captures this unique brand of social alienation. We all crave deep, meaningful connection, but for the highly intelligent, finding a true mental peer is a serious numbers game. When your mind operates on a completely different frequency, finding someone who can not only keep up but actually challenge you can feel impossible. Psychology has a pretty clear explanation for this: a mismatch of conversational needs. For most people, conversation is about emotional bonding. For a highly analytical mind, it's often about intellectual exploration. What feels like a fun, stimulating discussion to you might feel like a grueling mental workout to someone else. After a lifetime of watching people subtly back away from conversations that were just getting good, a lot of intelligent people simply stop trying. This withdrawal creates a dangerous feedback loop. Research shows that chronic loneliness is a huge predictor of depression and cognitive decline. The very isolation caused by your intelligence can start to chip away at the gift itself. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer once said that a person with a rich inner life needs less from the outside world. And while that's a strength, it can also create a protective wall that hardens into a painful, self-imposed exile, where you feel more like an observer of humanity than a participant in it. A mind that can grasp immense complexity can also grasp immense meaninglessness. And that brings us to the heaviest, darkest part of having a genius-level IQ, a heightened vulnerability to existential dread. For most people, life's big questions. What's the point of all this? Does my life even matter? Are abstract thoughts that only pop up once in a while. But for a highly analytical and introspective mind, those questions can become a constant, low-grade hum of anxiety. This is often called existential depression. It's not sadness about one specific thing, but a deep despair that comes from staring the fundamental truths of existence right in the face. Our mortality, our freedom, and the search for meaning in a universe that seems completely indifferent. This is especially common in gifted kids and adults. Some gifted children start asking their parents about death, injustice, and the heat death of the universe when they're 5 years old, leaving their parents stunned. They see the hypocrisy and absurdity in society with painful clarity. Their need to ask why doesn't stop at bedtime. It extends to the very structure of life itself. They feel powerless to fix the suffering they see, and they're painfully aware of how small they are in the grand scheme of things. So why does a high IQ lead to this? It boils down to pattern recognition and mental simulation. A smart mind doesn't just see one event, it sees the whole system. It sees how economic and social forces collide, which often leads to a pretty cynical view of humanity's future. It can simulate outcomes far down the road and see all the ways things could fail, making it hard to feel optimistic. This is all connected to a framework from Polish psychologist Kazimierz Dąbrowski, known as the theory of positive disintegration. Dąbrowski suggested that gifted people often have over-excitabilities, intense, heightened ways of experiencing the world. He identified 5 kinds: psychomotor, excess energy, sensual, heightened senses, intellectual, insatiable curiosity, imaginational, vivid imagination, and emotional, intense feelings. Intellectual overexcitability fuels the endless search for truth. Imaginational overexcitability lets them dream up a better, more perfect world, which then creates a painful contrast with the real one. And emotional overexcitability makes them feel the world's pain with a sharp, personal intensity. They don't just see injustice, they feel it. This combination is the perfect recipe for existential depression. It's the burden of seeing exactly what is, vividly imagining what could be, and feeling crushed by the gap between the two. If any of this is hitting home, if you've ever felt that your mind works in these ways, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're all about exploring the complexities of the human mind here, and offering some validation for those who feel like they think and feel on a different level. You're definitely not alone in this. With great intellectual gifts come great and often crushing expectations. And this pressure doesn't just come from the outside world. Most of it comes from within. A genius-level IQ often feels less like a trait and more like a command. You are capable of greatness, so you damn well better achieve it. This creates a relentless internal pressure cooker for anxiety and perfectionism. For many gifted people, their entire sense of self gets tangled up with their intellect. They aren't just a person who happens to be smart, they are the smart one. This identity, usually built in childhood when school was a breeze, is incredibly fragile. Because they never had to try, many never learned how to struggle, how to fail, and how to get back up again. The result: as adults, they can become terrified of failure. The thought of not living up to their potential, of being seen as merely average, or God forbid, a fraud, is a fate worse than death. This fear takes the form of crippling perfectionism. They won't start a project unless they know they can do it perfectly. They'll avoid any challenge that's outside their comfort zone. They see criticism not as feedback, but as an indictment of their very identity, an accusation that they aren't as smart as everyone thinks. This creates a painful paradox. They are capable of so much, but their fear of not being brilliant enough paralyzes them into achieving very little. They might even choose jobs far below their skill level, not because they lack ambition, but as a defense mechanism, a way to avoid the arena where their genius would truly be tested and could potentially fail. This pressure is also a huge driver of depression. When you set an impossibly high bar for yourself, every little mistake feels like a catastrophe. Every goal that isn't met perfectly reinforces the deep-seated fear that you're a disappointment. You see your potential as a mountain you were supposed to have climbed by now, and every day you don't reach the summit feels like a personal failure. This isn't just ambition. It's a form of self-torture where your gift becomes the stick you use to beat yourself with. Finally, we get to the core of it all, the one trait that cranks the volume up on every other struggle: heightened sensitivity. The work of Dombrowski and the hyperbrain hyperbody theory from the Mensa study both point to the same idea. A highly intelligent brain is a highly reactive brain. It's a nervous system that's wired to respond to everything with more intensity. And this isn't just about getting your feelings hurt easily. It covers all 5 of Dombrowski's overexcitabilities. Emotional overexcitability means you feel everything on a massive scale. Joy is pure ecstasy, but sadness is a black hole. Imaginational overexcitability gives you a rich fantasy life, but also delivers your fears in vivid, high-definition detail. Intellectual overexcitability is that relentless hunger for knowledge we talked about. Sensual overexcitability means you might be deeply moved by a piece of music, but also completely overwhelmed by scratchy tags on your shirt or loud noises. And psychomotor overexcitability is that surplus of physical energy, that need to talk and move, that often gets misdiagnosed as hyperactivity. A person with a few of these traits experiences reality in a fundamentally different way. It's stronger, louder, and more intense. They can't just shrug off a negative comment because their mind and body are processing it with 10 times the depth. They feel injustice not as an abstract idea, but as a physical ache. Their empathy can be so powerful, they have to consciously shut it down just to keep from being swallowed by all the suffering in the world. This sensitivity offers a great way to understand the conflicting data on IQ and mental health. While big studies show high intelligence can be protective, that's likely because of better problem-solving skills and life outcomes. But for those who also have these overexcitabilities, that hyperbrain might create a tendency to internalize every problem, leading to the higher rates of anxiety and depression we see in groups like Mensa. It's really important to understand that these traits aren't flaws. Dombrowski himself saw them as a sign of high developmental potential. He believed this kind of inner conflict was necessary for growth, but that doesn't make it any less painful. Living in a world that often feels too loud, too chaotic, and too shallow for your finely tuned nervous system is an exhausting and deeply alienating experience. It's the fundamental, inescapable dark side of having a mind that simply feels too much. This journey through the dark side of genius isn't meant to be depressing. It's an act of translation. It's about taking these chaotic, isolating feelings, the endless rumination, the loneliness, the dread, the pressure, the sensitivity, and finally giving them a name. The research is complicated and sometimes contradictory, but the lived experience is real. The struggles we've talked about today aren't character flaws. They're not signs that you're broken. They are the logical, predictable side effects of a mind that's wired for depth, complexity, and intensity. Your tendency to overthink is the price of being able to see every possibility. Your isolation is the byproduct of a mind that craves a depth of connection most people can't handle. Your existential angst comes from an awareness that many are lucky enough to live without. You are not alone in this. There's a whole community of people out there who feel the exact same way. Understanding the why behind your struggles is the first real step toward accepting yourself. It changes the story from one of dysfunction to one of simple difference. Your intelligence is not a curse. It's a high-performance engine. And like any high-performance engine, it just needs a different kind of maintenance, a different kind of understanding, and a different kind of fuel. Learning to manage its intensity instead of fighting it is the real key to not just surviving, but actually thriving. Which of these struggles do you relate to the most? Share your experience in the comments. Reading through them is such a powerful reminder that none of us are alone in this. And if this video gave you a moment of aha, please like the video and subscribe for more deep dives into the psychology of our powerful, complicated minds.